many youth leadership training groups can you name? We'll discuss one such group on Talking with Henrietta, coming up next. Hi, I'm Henrietta. Welcome to the show. There are a number of groups in the U.S. that are dedicated to training young people in our country to become leaders. Some of these groups operate under AmeriCorps, a national program sponsored by the U.S. government, foundations, corporations, and individual donors. The goal of the program is to involve young adults in public service for the purpose of helping others and meeting some of the critical needs in local communities. You've probably heard of AmeriCorps groups like Big Sisters, Big Brothers, the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, Habitat for Humanity, and the YMCA. Another such group is Public Allies, which you might not have heard a lot about. On this show, I will talk to 4 public allies to discuss their group's purpose, why they each joined the group, and what they are doing locally to make a difference. Shristi Praha is seated on my far left. Shristi obtained a bachelor's degree in biology with a minor in environmental science from Northeastern University. She then went on to pursue a master's in anthropology from Harvard University. Beside Shristi is Leah Bolasan, who graduated from UC Irvine in 2012 with a bachelor's degree in biology. Leah is now enrolled at California State University Northridge to get her master's in public administration with a specialty in nonprofit management. Seated on my right is Edgar Tenorio, who graduated from Santa Clara University in 2018 with a degree in biology and public health. In addition to involving himself in projects that are related to his degree, Edgar currently tutors Spanish-speaking mothers in English. Alamoni Afundia is seated beside Edgar. Alamoni graduated from Oregon State University with a bachelor's in anthropology and a minor in ethnic studies. In keeping with her interest in anthropology and ethnic studies, she's very much interested in cultural awareness and cultural preservation. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you with me. Now, I do hope I did justice to your names.
Yeah.
So let's start off talking about Public Allies. I said that people might not have heard much about the program. So what is Public Allies all about?
Okay, so Public Allies was started by 2 college graduates in 1992. In around 1993 or 1994, it was one of the first AmeriCorps programs to be funded, one of them being Habitat for Humanity and the other being Public Allies. And a cool fun fact is that Michelle Obama was one of the first executive directors on the board, so we have a queen with us.
Ah, a queen here at the table?
Me too. I'm also and you too, Henrietta, and all of us.
So why was it founded? Any idea?
It was founded because they felt like the idealism of youth was not being harnessed, you know, at a very young age and getting people into doing civic engagement earlier in their life. So that's why it was started, and then it's just grown since.
So do you feel, and it's interesting sometimes, each generation feels that the generation behind it is not doing enough, is not concerned enough, and is not aware enough. Do you feel that way in terms of maybe some of your fellow students that you've had in college?
I would say actually the Gen Z now is actually more aware than I ever was in high school. I don't know if you guys agree with me.
Leah, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I think that things are always changing, And so the social issues that we see today are very different than the generation before us. Even things like things that my parents faced are very different from what I face now, and that's just with advances in technology that creates, you know, new solutions but also new problems. And so I think it's just, it's different, but I don't think that they were any less engaged.
So you don't think maybe this younger generation might be more involved in their cell phones, playing video games, being online, being on Facebook, than being involved in the issues?
No, I see that more as just a stereotype. I mean, working with my kids, I have some 4th and 5th graders who are telling me more stuff about like LGBTQ issues or the environment or all these other issues that I felt I knew a lot about, taking, like, with my background, I taking sociology classes and stuff, but they're like letting me know. So they're like very in tune with those sorts of issues, and they're willing to step up and fight against it.
So how are they that involved? I mean, where are they getting their information?
I guess it's just from schools a little bit more involved, and even just they have to be. Like, I know my kids, some of them are involved in a project that we have that's called Rents Too High, and it's something that they have to be involved in because of the issues that are in their community that affect them in their everyday lives. So it's not really a choice of like, do I really want to be involved in this? It's like, I have to be involved in this because it's required.
Alimony, what do you think?
Well, at my placement, I work at East Balta Academy, and so it's a requirement for students to do exhibition. And so one thing that I've been doing with my kids is actually helping I think they're juniors. They have to pick a topic, and I think with that, it's just helping them dig deeper into these movements that they weren't aware of.
So when you were in college, were your classmates very much involved in social issues?
I think so. Well, for me, I would speak on behalf of myself. Like, I was involved with, I was part of the Native American Longhouse Cultural Center. I was involved with the First Native American sorority, and like the Pacific Islander Club, which did a lot of movements on campus and protesting and stuff like that.
So at least your generations have been very much involved. I shouldn't say your generations. I mean, how many generations? So it was interesting what was going on when Public Allies in the 90s was really formed. So why did you select? Now let's see, you majored in anthropology.
I did my master's in anthropology.
Yes. So how did that lead you, or did it lead you at all into Public Allies? When did you become aware of Public Allies, Shristi?
So I did my undergrad in biology, and I was working in academic science. And I think that was actually my first kind of more like putting my foot into becoming aware as to systemic oppression and how that can affect you. And being like a minority woman in science was not a very like conducive space for good mental health, and just like career opportunities were limited. So that's partially why I started doing my master's in anthropology, to learn from a community standpoint how people are and what impacts them. And so Public Allies was really, when I started looking for grassroots community activism organizations, was like, it just made a lot of sense.
So just to go back a little bit, you said that being involved in biology and science was not conducive to your mental health in terms of the environment at that time. Say a little more about that, because more and more women are being asked to get into science. Mm-hmm. And here you were in science.
Yeah. I think that you have to have a very strong backbone and willpower to remain in science as a woman, especially a woman of color. And I was definitely finding myself oppressed in the lab that I worked at specifically. It might not be everyone's standpoint on it, so I don't want to speak for everyone other than myself, but I felt like I was being marginalized, and having that much education then feeling marginalized is like, okay, so then what's the point of this education that I'm even getting, and how can I ensure that the future doesn't have to face the same barriers that I'm facing? And so instead of staying in science and trying to fight the system from within, I kind of took a step out because it was just better for me, and then now I can speak to that, you know, for the future generation to have a better experience in STEM.
And you became aware of Public Allies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go back to that, why you chose it, after we hear Leah talk about some of her experiences. Because you graduated with a bachelor's degree in, let's see, Leah.
Biology.
Yes, in biology. I was thinking, yes, and I was thinking, gee, am I reading the right one? But yes, both of you in biology too.
So I came from a very science background in school. When I started my undergrad, I had pre-med plans or pre-health plans. A lot of students did at UC Irvine. But I came back in my last year of college. I thought, it's probably not the right track for me. But I did end up working in tech in San Jose for about 5 years. And it was a good learning experience, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. And I, from growing up, had a very strong passion for social justice. I went to Notre Dame High School in downtown San Jose, which is very focused on like social justice issues and the like. And so I decided to make a career change last year, and that's how I found Public Allies.
Was that hard to do?
Oh, it was so hard. Yeah, it's a lot. Just going anywhere where you're really comfortable. I was very comfortable at my job for the last 5 years. It was stuff that I knew and that I was good at. And going into a different field, serving even communities that you are not even a part of, was a really big transition.
And you didn't think you could do it part-time?
No, I didn't
on your
think
own
so.
time? No.
I really wanted the full experience because I felt that if I stayed even connected to my old job, that I would never fully make that transition.
So was it a transition for you, Edgar, getting into Public Allies?
I guess it was just pretty natural, my movement. I had just finished college and I was looking for a job. I majored in biology and public health, and so public health and like service work, I feel like connect a lot because you're always trying to do better for the community and help people.
All of these biology majors.
Yeah. So I was just applying to jobs a lot. I actually was pretty focused on going to biostatistics. So I was applying to a lot of like health analysts and like a lot of data science sorts of jobs. And then Public Allies popped up, and I was kind of like making this choice between like, okay, am I going to stay in like this hard science, numbers and data background, or am I going to like sit here or like and work with the community? And so after like hard choices, I decided to work with the community, and I loved that choice. I would not have been happy sitting in a desk all day and just crunching numbers and stuff. I really like my job right now.
Oh, money.
So I'm from East Palo Alto, so before I went off to college, I did a lot of community work. So as I was graduating and trying to figure out my plans after, my academic advisor in high school actually reached out to me and told me about Public Allies, and from there I just got an interview, and but before that I researched it and I really liked it. It was basically what I was doing before college, and so being back and working with my own community is a blessing.
So you're the one person here who did not get a degree in biology.
No.
It was anthropology and a minor in ethnic studies, along with Shristi. Shristi, weren't you? Yes, you were also involved in anthropology.
For my master's.
Yes, for your master's. So give us an idea of what it means to be in Public Allies. How often do you meet? What's your coursework? What do you do? And has it met what you thought would be fulfilling?
Yeah, so I guess like the overall like basis of the program is that we're each placed at a different nonprofit here in the Bay Area, and then we also, so we work on those full-time Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays we'll meet and have like a training, and we basically learn like different like management skills, leadership skills. So we have like stuff on like reflective listening, project management, anything that's really going to help us out like going forward in like the nonprofit field. And then we also have our TSP project, and we partnered with EPA Today and EPA Center for Community Media for that. And so for that, we're each writing newspaper articles, and we are also putting on our a media day to celebrate the 13th anniversary of EPA Today.
So before we get into that, what's a TSP project, Leah?
TSP stands for Team Service Project. So there are about 20 to 30 Public Allies per cohort. And
what's a cohort?
the class of students that are in Public Allies for this year. So there are South Bay Public Allies, that's us. There are 6 more South Bay Public Allies in another team that's doing a TSP project. And then there are also allies in the East Bay and in the SF Bay. And so we're split up into these groups that we work closely with throughout the 10-month program. Those are the people who you meet with on Fridays and the people you do your service project with.
So the project is 10 months and you get paid. Do you get paid from the project or you get paid from the individual company or organization with whom you're placed?
So
You laugh when I say get paid.
Because we don't get paid.
It's a stipend.
It's a stipend,
yeah.
and it is very, very nominal. Like everything that we do is basically for free because we're not getting paid minimum wage even. So.
But similar to the other AmeriCorps programs, you do get the educational grant at the end. So it's around $6,000 when you complete your term of service that you can use.
So can I join?
$6,000
Yeah, but then you make very little for the rest of the time. So. Yeah.
So what do you expect? Let's see, where are you in the program now?
We're in the home
8
stretch.
months.
Yes.
8 months in,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're 8 months in. Okay, and I have to say, Edgar did mention working with the East Palo Alto Center for Community Media, which involves me since I started that in 2003 to create media outlets in East Palo Alto. So I am thrilled you're working
Yeah.
for the East Palo Alto Center for Community Media. And what are you doing for the center?
Well, we specifically work with EPA Today.
The newspaper.
The newspaper. Writing articles, hopefully articles that underscore assets that are already within the community. So whether that's nonprofits or people or even just topics that could affect the community, things like that, that's what we try to help you with.
Anyone to add to what Tristy just now said?
Yeah, so that's so our project's basically like 2 parts. So we are writing articles, so we'll like do research and we like go out into the community and interview people, really find out what's really going on, and we write articles and try to get that news out to everybody in the community. And then our second part is a media day that we wanted to put on.
Okay, so before we get into the second part,
I'm trying to bring it up.
yes, yes. So let's talk about the work that you're doing for the paper, and we have some pictures. And the first one is the cover of the newspaper, the East Palo Alto Today newspaper. And that's the issue when you started that your articles appeared in. And so that's the winter-spring 2019 cover of the East Palo Alto Today newspaper. And we can see the next picture. And there you are, and Tristy wrote
I'm
that.
actually in it.
Yes. Yeah, Shristi's in that one. And tell us about that article, Shristi.
This article was basically a lot of what we already talked about. So just what Public Allies is, what we're doing for EPA Today, what we offer, and we did a little piece on each of us just explaining how we got to Public Allies and why we want to work with Henrietta. And working with Henrietta has been honestly a very, very rewarding experience. So we couldn't have picked a better TSP leader
And
project.
you would say that even if I weren't sitting here, right?
100%. I would.
So there is somebody else in that photo. There are 4 of you here, but there's someone else in that photo. So you want to say something about her?
Yes, Emily Hess, who is next to Alimony in that picture, she was in our TSP project for actually most of it. So she only left last week.
Yeah, last one.
Public Allies is a very intense, grueling process, which requires, like, you know, good mental health, good physical health. Like, you just have to be on all the time, working nonstop, and it does take a toll on your body and your mental health. And I think Emily did the best she could, and she contributed a lot to our group. But
Yes,
she
and we were
ultimately left.
very, very happy to have her. We can go on to the 3rd photo, and you'll see everybody in it, including Emily. And Shristi, who wrote, or I should ask Alimony. since Shristi was just talking, Alimony, do you know who wrote those bio descriptions?
Shishti did.
With their permission.
And what did you all find out about each other? I mean, I introduced you all, but there were things that I didn't say. So anything about yourself that you want to say, or about each other that you want to say that you think might be important?
I was shocked when we first started working with EPA to learn that Alimony was an intern for EPA.
Let's pull up that photo.
So this is not her first rodeo with this newspaper.
Yes.
Yes, she spent a short time as an intern. What, maybe it
was
had to have been
summer
at
of
least 4
2004.
years ago before you
Yeah.
started college.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or I was a sophomore in college.
Were you at
It
that
was just
time?
the summer, yeah.
So evidently there's some places you just don't get away from.
I'm glad to be back though.
Oh, yay. So Edgar, was there anything you found out about the other public allies from the profiles that were mentioned that you didn't know?
I think by that time, how far was it? Like 4 or 5 months in? I think I knew literally everything that was to know about all our public allies.
Don't look at us
Too
like
much.
Yeah, a little bit too much. So yeah, nothing can surprise me now. Yeah, nothing comes out of left field.
Oh, nothing can surprise you.
Yeah.
we gotta surprise Edgar.
There was something that, I shouldn't say it surprised me, but it did leave me wondering, and that's why you're called the Tiny Gang.
Oh yeah.
So why are you the Tiny Gang? And where did that come from?
We, out of all the TSP groups in Public Allies, we are the smallest.
We are.
So we're doing all the work
Small
with
in
less
terms of size, physically in terms of size?
Oh, no, just
both.
a number.
No,
Group
both.
or both.
So how large is the largest one?
Oh, very big.
I think it's 7 people.
7 to 8
7
people,
to
I
8
think.
people
Yeah.
in the East Bay.
Sure. Now, what I'd like to do is go back to the photos because you all wrote articles and that kind of coincided with your areas of interest. So if we could see the next picture. Edgar, you wrote about you're interested in nutrition and health. And what was your article?
Yeah, so my article titled "Are Grocery Stores Enough to Improve Our Health?" So a lot of my work, my public health work that I did during my undergrad was focused on obesity, the obesity epidemic that's becoming a huge problem here in the United States. So what I really wanted to do with this article was to look at the obesity levels in EPA and see how the city itself was trying to improve them. So the one way that I found out that they were doing that was they put in Mi Pueblo grocery market, now called Cardenas, over right off of 101. And I really wanted to look at, to see if it was actually improving the obesity levels of East Palo Alto. And I did a little bit of research and found out that there wasn't really a change in the obesity levels. And that's actually, it's interesting because it's kind of like a new contentious point where a lot of,
We can lose the picture right now.
yeah.
So you were saying it's a point of contention?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of preconceptions that in areas that don't have a lot of access to like fresh fruits, vegetables, that you can just kind of come in and like put something there and then everyone's going to start eating healthy.
So why isn't that the case?
So that's kind of what's the reason why. So there's a lot of things that can affect it. There's prices, of course. Healthy foods cost a lot more than like a cheap food. Like you can get a burger for like $1 at McDonald's, or you have to buy like a fresh meal. It's going to cost you $5 to $10 at like a grocery store. There's also educational issues. So a lot of people don't know don't know what's healthy, or they don't know really how to cook or eat healthy. So a lot of those can kind of, and there's some other issues, but those can kind of come together to present themselves as when you give people access to healthy foods, that's normally not enough. So if I don't want to get too far where I'm like talking about policy and stuff, but yeah, so it seems like more has to be added in. You can't just come in, give people like a grocery store and expect obesity to improve.
That's interesting. There has to be.
There has to be something more. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we can talk about the something more as we go on. So let's look at the next photo again that had another article in it. And that's an article that you had written, alimony. How did you happen to write that?
Well, I wanted to highlight people in my hometown. So I wanted to start off with the series, just interviewing people who wanted to share their story. The first person I interviewed was Sato Hila. She's a native to East Palo Alto, and I basically just asked her like how it was growing up and what's changed since then. She also talked about all the volunteer opportunities that she's been doing, and just the work, as well as the work that she's doing.
So why did you think that was the profile that you wanted to do? I mean, why do you, yes, say more about it.
I think with like all the gentrification and the changes that are going on in East Palo Alto, I thought that it was very important to just take a break from that and just get to know people in East Palo Alto and just hear out their stories.
Sure, good. And that's what you'll continue to do?
Yes.
Yes. Is that a part of the ethnic studies, the part of the anthropology?
I would say that, and just part of the interest that I like doing.
In terms of the community?
Yes.
And do we have another, I think we might have missed something in the photos. Is there another photo after that? Because Leah, you have a photo. Did you see your photo at all?
Oh,
your
yeah,
article
it's
at all?
underneath the one with our bios.
Oh, okay, so if we can go back. I had a feeling. If we could go back a photo and we can talk about Leah's. Let's go back another photo. Go back another photo. There we go. So talk about that. That was a rather long one.
It was long. I had a lot to say about it. My personal interest is in nonprofits. I'm getting my master's in public administration for nonprofit management, and I am really interested to learn about what makes nonprofits sustainable, what makes them, good for the community, and how do you really affect change. And East Palo Alto has a ton of great organizations out there that are willing to share their stories and the work that they're doing. So for my first article, I interviewed Vicky Smothers and Sue Cortopassi from Free at Last, also because they were celebrating their 25th anniversary in January.
Free at Last.
Yes.
Celebrating its 25th anniversary. This past January.
Yes, on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend.
So you want to say something about Free at Last, the type of organization it is, and what interested you in it? We can drop the photo.
So Free at Last is a community...
We can drop the photos, okay.
Yeah, so Free at Last is a community rehabilitation center. It's been around for 25 years. It was started by members of the community who were basically fed up with the types of treatments that were available, and they were really part of the community. They were started by public health nurses, former addicts, Vicky herself, and other community members that just knew that that healing and recovery was possible within their community. There is a saying out there that you can't get clean where you got dirty, and Free at Last kind of proved that to be untrue because they've had wild success in the past 25 years. And I think what happens is that when people heal themselves, like in their own community, they start to take responsibility for the community as a whole. So I think at their event, their celebration event in January, they had a lot of keynote speakers that were saying, once people in the community were healing themselves of their own addictions, then they began to see, like, what else can I do for the community and how can I be a leader? So it's the model of rebuilding yourself from within that I thought was really interesting and special about Free at Last.
So if you're interested in leadership and recovery or rehabilitation or making a difference in the community, then that's an organization that you have as a model. And some of the other work that you're doing also brings out some of those aspects of what Public Allies is all about. So Shristi, you wrote about the Public Allies. Was there another article that you had, or that was the article that you had?
That's the article I had for last month. Currently working on voter suppression article, kind of trying to dig into how that could be affecting the communities here. And writing an article about Media Day, and also about our public service that we've been doing through Public Allies. So we did a service day with the United Farm Workers Movement, and highlighted not only the Hispanic population, but the Filipino population that was really forgotten in the movement. And we went to MACLA in downtown San Jose, and we did some artwork.
The Filipino community was forgotten in the movement.
Yes.
How so?
So,
And why should that community have been involved in the movement, right? Which movement are you talking about? The
United
farm
Farm
workers.
Workers movement.
Yes. Why should that have, that's a part of history we don't often think of.
yeah, I don't even think really the United Farm Workers are ever really talked about in history books, at least not when I was in high school, and then definitely not the Filipino population that's really forgotten. So we had actually a training in Public Allies, and we had Rodfather, what's his name? I'm sorry. He was a council person in a county that I
Daly City.
Daly City. And he actually educated us a lot. He's a PhD in anthropology or ethnic studies. Yeah. And he talked a lot about how the Filipino immigrants that came were actually like cultivated and groomed to come here, and then marginalized and not given proper wages or proper living, or just basic health care.
And they were working in the fields.
And they were working in the fields.
In the fields of California, before?
Around the same time that the Latin population, there were a ton of different populations working, but the Filipinos were, I think, one of the largest in conjunction with the Latin population.
Were they supplanted by the Latin population? We don't, when we think of farm workers in the fields, we don't think of Filipinos. Are there a lot of Filipinos now, Leah? You were going to say.
Oh, just that there were a lot of Filipinos, just as many as there were like Latin American, Mexican farm workers back in the like 20s and 30s. But it really is forgotten. I think when you think of the United Farm Workers Movement, you think primarily of like Mexicans.
Yes.
And that training that we had really showed, you know, a different side of history, but it really brought home the fact that that farm workers union or farm workers movement wouldn't have happened unless those two populations came together. Because what we were learning is, you know, when one group tries to advocate for themselves without considering the other group or joining with the other group, that other group just takes their place. And so instead of competing with each other, the way to make it work was to work together and strike at the same time.
So what you're saying is, if there are two groups doing the same thing, if one group works without the other group, assuming that that one group is successful, then it would be supplanted by the second group?
I think it's just basically, I think what she was trying to say is that one group overshadows the other. So in this specific instance, like Cesar Chavez is the known figure, and the Latin population is known for that movement specifically. But the Filipino immigrants worked actually just as hard, and if not started earlier than the Latin population ever did, to coalesce and start fighting for their rights. So it's just a real, it's a shame that that's just like not a population that's remembered for that.
It's very, very interesting, because when you saw in the history books or the actual demonstrations, there wasn't any mention whatsoever of the Filipino population. And so how did that affect the population? Did you get any further in terms of learning about that? What effect did that have? Was there resentment? Were they completely overlooked? Did they not get the same type of recognition or benefits, if there were any benefits that had been accorded?
I believe when they unionized, and you guys can fill in, when they unionized, the Filipino workers did not get the same compensation that the other workers did. So a lot of them were naturalized citizens. Like that, the Filipinos were not naturalized, but a lot of the other populations were naturalized, so they were given significantly more benefits or more wages according to that, I think. But I don't know if I'm wrong. I think I'm right.
I think you got it.
It was, yeah, I don't know. I think that sounds right, yeah.
Well, it seems that you all are getting a lot of involvement just in terms of the issues. So any other speakers you've had in the program that you want to talk about or that left an impression on you?
Oh, that's a good question.
There were so many, not one particular one comes to mind.
We had her name is not coming to mind right now, but we had a very interesting one on mindful reflection from a month ago in San Francisco. And a lot of the public allies trainings that we receive are either professional development or exploring a social justice topic. But this one in particular was really about, since we were about halfway through the program, just taking the time to learn how to reflect on your own progress and be kind of grateful for it and be mindful of it. And it really was kind of an eye-opener, because I think a lot of us get really burnt out from the program sometimes. And so to have that strategically placed right there in the middle was a really good refresher.
Well, I'm thinking all of us, even though we may not be in a particular program, could certainly benefit from reflecting on our own progress, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what's a good way to reflect on our own progress?
One of the activities that we did was we wrote a letter to ourselves, it was just a letter to ourselves, and that really resonated with me because just like what Leah said, we're like halfway through the program, so a lot of us are just either stressed or emotionally not there. So just reminding us and giving ourselves motivation. For myself, it really helped me.
So when you write a letter to yourself, can you say anything?
Yes.
I wanted it.
I sure did.
Because I'm thinking, gee, I should write a letter to myself, but what would I say?
Yeah.
So what might be some guidelines for all of us who may want to write a letter to ourselves to get the most out of it?
Yeah, it was really interesting what they had us do, because they had us write down words that we were feeling that were bad, and then we kind of wrote why we were feeling those bad things, and then we wrote a letter to ourselves as if we were in the mindset of someone else telling us that these bad things aren't that bad. So it was basically breaking down oh, you might feel like you're falling behind and other people are going farther ahead of you, but really everybody goes at their own pace or something like that. And so it's interesting when it's you're kind of taking yourself out of your own mindset and having to think about it as if you're telling this to someone else, and then you look down and you reread it and you're like, oh. I don't know, it just puts everything in perspective of I was thinking that it's really not that bad, but then I was thinking it was that bad. So it's just a weird mindset. You do have that mindset of everything's going to be okay. You're a successful person, you're doing good things for the community and stuff, but it just gets overshadowed by this stress of what's coming next, what am I doing, am I helping the community, all these other things that stress you out. So it's kind of getting, switching, because you have those two mindsets, there's switching that other one so it's more prominent.
So that reminds me of an article that I haven't read yet that I need to go back and read. I guess I haven't had the time, but maybe after this show I'll find the time. And the article it's more or less titled, "You're Actually Okay."
Oh, I like that.
Yes, and I would like to read that because, we always sometimes think that there's something missing, right? So it's great to have a letter like that you write to yourself saying, it's okay, you're all right, you'll make it, you'll do it. Now, talking about you'll do it, you're working on a project.
Yes, we are.
And you'll do it. And Edgar has referred to it several times.
I'm trying to get the word out.
What are we doing, Edgar?
I'm trying to do some quick outreach. I'm using our platform to get the word out.
Give us some plugs.
Yeah, so as I've mentioned 5 or 6 times before, our project's in 2 parts. So in conjunction with our newspaper articles that we're writing for EPA Today, we're also putting on a media day to celebrate the 13th anniversary of EPA Today, the newspaper. You can see our beautiful flyer over there.
Look at it.
But yeah, so on May 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to have a Media Day celebration at the East Palo Alto YMCA. It's going to celebrate local media. It's going to celebrate the 13th anniversary of EPA Today. So we invited a bunch of local organizations who do work here in East Palo Alto to kind of table and show the community.
Now, what does it mean to table?
Sorry,
For
so-
many people, that might be an interesting word, to table.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a photo of it, Media Day.
Yes.
Yeah. So tabling is going to be, I guess, different depending on the organization, but they're basically invited to attend. They're going to be given like a table space, and they can kind of do whatever with it. So some of them are going to be providing resources to the community. Some of them are going to be talking about their mission and ways that that people in East Palo Alto can get involved with them. And anything else that they offer here in East Palo Alto.
We also have another photo about Media Day, and we can also talk from that photo. So, who else would like to? Edgar's done a almost comprehensive job. Talk about some of the other things that'll be there that are mentioned in the photo.
So Media Day will be on May 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and it's at the YMCA in East Palo Alto. Besides like resources, there'll be, Leah said it, a bouncy house, as well as a food vendor. So we've invited a lot of restaurants in the East Palo Alto and Palo Alto as well to just come and network with us and as well as sell their food there.
And you also mentioned there are like 17 local nonprofits?
18.
We have 20
And
now.
counting.
20. Oh,
We currently are up to 20 nonprofits
Oh.
that will be coming. Honestly, it's been such a good response for most people that we've contacted. Every single person has either shown interest or wanted to participate. So that I think that goes to show that EPA has an amazing abundance of resources that are already available, and we just want to make other people aware of what they even are.
So talk about some of the participating organizations. You don't have to mention their names, it's up to you, but what type of resources, would be available? Health resources, I would assume, for people who might have a cold and are coughing.
We have some health resources,
Education.
education, organizations that help immigrant families.
Identity-based. So we have like the LGBTQ, like Pride of San Mateo, that commission is coming. Project We Hope, and their Citizen on Wheels, I believe. You have a ton.
There's a Pacific Islander nonprofit org that just started called Wakatasi. They'll be there. East Palo Alto Academy will be there.
There's a lot
there's
of
a lot of orgs.
organizations. We have legal help for non-citizens, sorry. So there's something for everyone.
And so how did you, when you decided on Media Day, tell us how all of that pulls together your interest, your public allies' interest. How does it pull it all together, or does it pull it all together?
Public Allies has 6 core values, and one of them is collaboration. So this project definitely ticks that box. And we were interested as a TSP group to focus on the community of East Palo Alto. So that right there, to be able to bring all the organizations that we've talked to over these past 6 months has been really, really wonderful. And we're really excited to kind of represent for the community.
Now, Leah just mentioned 6 core values. One of them is collaboration. What are the others?
Quiz time.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I had to.
I think diversity.
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 Yeah. Continuous learning.
Continuous learning.
Yeah.
That's 3.
3 down.
Oh, Steven, don't watch
Integrity.
this.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Yeah.
Which one?
Collaboration, diversity, integrity, continuous learning. Oh, we're so close.
Yes, 2 more.
Those are the ones I
With
knew.
character,
No, it's
with health, with personal development.
honestly we can't. Don't let
I'm so
Steven
sorry,
watch.
Steven.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry to our program manager.
Yeah.
We do know them,
Yeah.
and we practice them.
Yeah.
Well, that's very good. And so it's all a matter of continuous learning.
Very good.
Yeah.
It
there you
is.
go. Yeah.
Under the umbrella.
Yes. So you talked about the collaboration in terms of this project. There'll be speakers too. So we'll all be collaborating. And what type of speakers will there be?
Prominent individuals in the community, such as the mayor. Also, we're hoping to have individuals connected, especially specifically with EPA Today and EPA CCM, or Center for Community Media, sorry, to speak and then just tell about their story, because we are celebrating their 30th anniversary of EPA Today itself, and just we really want to kind of show the impact that it's had on the community, and really kind of how local media can really help change and shape a community.
And so do you think local media can help shape a community? If so, how?
I think it can, because I think that's what we're doing. Basically, we've been talking about it for the last hour. There's a lot of things that are available within the community, or that the community identifies with, or maybe things that they don't know about that they need to be educated on, and that can be done through local media, because that's the media that knows that community the best.
Anything else to be said? At least I'm thinking Alimony could talk about the focus that she's had with some of the people in the community and the articles that you're writing.
Well, besides Seth, I also interviewed Esmeralda Sanchez, who has been living in East Palo Alto for 30 years and just has been doing magnificent work within the community. But yeah, you just have to purchase a newspaper and read it.
So Edgar, your next article, have you decided?
Yeah, so my next article is going to be focusing on the farmers market that's happening in Ravenswood Health Center. It happens every Wednesday from, I want to say, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., but please check. Yeah, so it's actually amazing what they do. So they invite up to 6 local farmers, and it's like a space where they're allowed to share and sell their like local organically grown produce. So not only are you getting to eat healthy, you're getting, you know that there's no pesticides, there's no extra chemicals on those foods, but you're also supporting local farmers, a lot of people who do good work, and a lot of them are really passionate about really helping this community. So I spoke to one of the farmers, Jose Gallardo, who runs Gallardo's Farms. He, so the market usually gets big around this time, so right now is the perfect time to go, but he actually sells the entire year there. And so I talked to him, and he really showed his passion about bringing organic produce to the community. So yeah, please go, please support local farmers, and get some healthy foods. And he shared some of his foods, and it's really, really good.
Oh, well, that's certainly an invitation. And Leah, are you working on another article?
I am. I'm really excited about this one. In March or April, I had an interview with Andres Connell from Nuestra Casa. He's the executive director in my series of great nonprofits of East Palo Alto. And we talked a lot about how Nuestra Casa got started. Nuestra Casa is a primarily Latino community organizing group that was started in the early 2000s.
And is it what, Our House?
Yes, that's what it means in Spanish. And so they do some really great work with, they started off doing ESL classes for immigrant families, and they're really focused on parent engagement. So for immigrant parents, having them learn about the school system and how to navigate that for their own children. And yes, you can see the article in the next issue.
Yes, yes. They've also, I'm just thinking, I attended a session that they did on sea rise and how sea rise is affecting the local community and what it's going to mean for those who will be affected the most, which is all very interesting. So as you look at the goals in terms of leadership and involvement of public allies, what does it mean to you in terms of what you're doing? Are you actually fulfilling some of what you wanted to do or what you thought was lacking? Do you feel, how do you feel about the work that you've been doing and where it might lead you?
Damn, that's deep.
I think that the work that I've been doing is, so as you were saying, are like, is the next generation engaged? Is the next generation involved? And I think our entire project, and like all of us were very interested in youth and marginalized youth specifically, but basically giving youth a voice, giving youth the education, the knowledge to not only not be oppressed, but also not be the oppressor, like on both ends of that spectrum, like just educating in every way. I do think I do that now through Public Allies, so that's good.
And how do you? That's very, very interesting. It's one thing to deal with oppression, and it's another thing to not be the oppressor. So what do you say to people to inspire them not to oppress?
I guess it's just relating it back to your own experiences. I think almost everybody has had a time where they felt like marginalized in some way, and no one feels good when you're on like the receiving end of stuff. So just knowing that even small words or actions that you don't really think are harmful, or just think are a joke or playing, or even just stuff that you don't think about, can really be hurtful to a lot of other people.
Well, that's if people have empathy and they can put themselves in somebody else's place. But if people who might feel deserving or privileged might not feel that they're doing anything. They're only experiencing what it is that what they deserve by right of whatever rights they might give.
So I think that's where education plays a huge role, like being knowledgeable on those topics, whether that's the environment or, you could kind of go a lot of different ways about it, but if you start educating kids at a very young age on the topic, then they tend to do that research on their own and not just mimic or regurgitate things that they might hear. And that's not to say that's what anybody's doing, but I'm just saying that shifting a culture can start on two ends, so it can either be top down with like policy.
So when you're shifting a culture, how are you shifting it?
By teaching, right?
Yes, but shifting it from what to what? And if you're talking about shifting a culture, does that make some people nervous about how their culture how it might be shifted? Or what are you shifting? Are you shifting from those who have to those who don't, who have not? What are you shifting?
I think it's just the mindset.
Yeah, I think it's just creating empathy between groups that don't really have a lot of empathy. Like if you grow up in a community and everybody looks like you might see someone who doesn't look like you and not feel empathy towards them. So it's education and like building these bonds between different groups that aren't normally connected is going to shift everyone just to be more empathetic and to care about each other.
And you think that's going to improve the world?
Oh, I hope so.
I think it's a systemic thing too. The reason why people feel privileged or underprivileged is like the way that the society is built, either for them or not for them. And it's kind of something you learn in Public Allies too, is like, how do you create or work to create systems that are just and equitable?
Well, does that mean that some people will have less, those who now have, and will be giving to those people who have more, who have less? You're taking from those who have and giving it to those who don't.
Equity.
When you're talking about equity.
No.
No.
No, equity is about everyone having equal access to opportunity and equal access to resources, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's taking from anyone else. It just means that we're providing the same level of support that other people might have, and it could be as simple as like giving you a familial structure, right? Like having parents or having just money to even go to school.
So where will this lead you for the future? Alimony, have you thought about it? The 8 months is almost over, or you've gone into 8 months and there are 2 more to go. So where will this lead you? Or is it leading you?
Well, I want to go into education, so hopefully I'll use the next year to get into grad school. I want to be an academic advisor in higher ed. So,
On the college level?
yes.
Edgar?
I'm actually a little bit more lost than I was before the program. I came into this program just I was going to do this year, learn a bit, and then go into grad school, and then do like more research-based stuff. And then my time working with my kids, with my community, doing all that work has really given me a different perspective on the work that I could be doing and working on, and maybe tackling the problems in a different way. So I'm actually going to be doing a second year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And
Public Allies.
in Public Allies, yes. Stay with my community, and then hopefully get a little bit more, learn a bit more from my community, gain some more, just absorb, and then hopefully have a better view of what I'm going to be doing going forward.
Leah?
I'm going to finish up my master's degree in 2020, and Public Allies definitely showed me that that is the nonprofit is like the industry or the sector that I want to be in, coming from for-profit. And so hopefully I'll still be doing work like in my own community in San Jose. Right now we work with foster youth, so education and support for foster youth is very important to me.
Christine?
Yeah, similar to Edgar, I'm a little bit more lost than I was before. I think direct service really gives you this feeling of gratification that you can't really get anywhere else, but direct service also sometimes is not the only route to, creating more like systemic change. So I don't know, law school, policy advocacy, or creating a nonprofit or staying in nonprofit, like it's very confusing.
Or going into politics. And
Yeah.
that would actually, you don't think you would be corrupted, do you?
I'm more worried that I'm not very palatable. So I don't know if I could get a bunch of people to like me, or if I could do the thing where you like network. I don't like networking, so.
You got 4 people to like you here.
Oh my God.
Good one, man.
That's a great one.
Oh my God.
Well, I feel that I have to sneeze.
Oh, go for it.
Not because of what Edgar said, but,
She's like, I do not support.
but we're at the end of the show. And so I certainly would like to thank you for talking about your experiences in terms of Public Allies, why you joined, and what you're working on in terms of Media Day, which is May 4th, Saturday, May 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you for all of your assistance. We'll certainly look forward to all of your articles and what you're working on. And we'll look forward to what you do after Public Allies, whether it's politics for Shristi, education, for alimony, more Public Allies for Edgar and Leah finishing your degree. Thank you so much for being with me, and I'd like to thank our audience for joining us. Until next time.